On a scorching summer day in the rural outskirts of Los Angeles, 70-year-old Vietnam veteran Frank Miller sat in his small home, gazing at old photographs. Once a strong and independent man, Frank's life had changed forever after a war injury left him paralyzed from the waist down. Now confined to a wheelchair, he lived a quiet life with his wife of 50 years, Margaret, who had always been his rock. But on this day, their peaceful existence turned into a living nightmare. A wildfire, fanned by strong winds, had erupted nearby and was now racing toward Frank's neighborhood. Thick smoke began to seep into the house, and Margaret, overcome by the fumes, collapsed to the floor. Desperately, Frank tried to rouse her, calling her name and shaking her frail body, but his physical limitations prevented him from carrying her. As the flames engulfed the roof, Frank realized he had no choice. He dropped from his wheelchair to the ground and began to crawl toward the door, dragging his body inch by inch. His hands burned on the scorching floor, and his knees scraped against sharp debris, but he refused to give up. When he finally made it outside, the house was fully ablaze. Behind him lay the smoldering remains of his home and the woman he had loved for over half a century. Frank sat silently in his wheelchair, staring at the charred ruins of his home. Everything was gone. His house, his memories, and the love of his life, Margaret. His hands trembled as he grasped at the ashen ground beneath him, tears streaming down his weathered face. The same man who had survived the horrors of Vietnam now found himself utterly defeated in the land he had served. Neighbors approached, trying to offer him comfort, but Frank couldn't speak. He could only watch as the blackened remains of his life lay scattered around him. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, who had come to Los Angeles to support wildfire victims, was walking through the devastated neighborhoods. As he spoke with survivors and surveyed the destruction, his gaze fell upon Frank sitting silently among the ashes. The profound grief etched on Frank's face caught Trump's attention, and he immediately approached him. "Sir," Trump said gently, kneeling slightly to meet Frank's eyes. "What happened to you in this fire? How can I help?" Frank slowly looked up, his eyes red and swollen from tears. "I lost everything," he said in a broken voice. "My home, my wife, Margaret. She didn't make it. She couldn't escape the smoke. I had to leave her behind. Now I have nothing." Trump crouched down beside Frank, looking into his tear-filled eyes. "Mr. Miller, this is an unimaginable tragedy. Please, tell me everything. What can I do to help?" he asked with genuine concern. Frank's trembling hands covered his face as he took a deep, shaky breath. Tears streamed down his weathered cheeks as he began to speak, his voice cracking under the weight of his sorrow. "Mr. Trump," Frank began, struggling to get the words out, "I gave my legs for this country. In Vietnam, I saw hell. I lost my brothers, my closest friends, one by one under enemy fire. Every night I hear their voices in my dreams, calling out to me, 'Frank, don't leave us.' But I had no choice. I had to leave them behind." Frank paused, his gaze drifting off into the distance. "When I came back, I wasn't whole anymore. I left my left leg on that battlefield, but losing my leg was easier than losing pieces of my soul. People see war veterans as heroes, but they don't understand the pain we carry every single day." Trump listened intently, his face a mix of empathy and determination. "And Margaret?" he asked softly. At the mention of his wife's name, Frank let out a deep sigh. "Margaret, she was my anchor," Frank said, his voice heavy with emotion. "She was my light in the darkness. When I came back from that hell, she was the one who kept me going. She never left me. She loved me, even when I couldn't love myself. But that smoke, that damned smoke..." His voice cracked and he struggled to continue. "I tried to save her. I didn't want to leave her behind. But my legs, Mr. Trump, I had to crawl out of that house and Margaret stayed inside." The weight of Frank's words hit Trump hard, like a blow to the chest. "Frank, this is a devastating loss. No one should bear this pain alone," he said gently. But Frank, lost in his grief, stared at the ground, his hands clutching the arms of his wheelchair. "Our home, that little house, was everything to us. After all I lost in the war, it was the only thing I managed to build. Margaret's flowers, our memories, everything is gone. Now I'm sitting here in the middle of nothing. I'm a veteran. I fought for this country. But now, who am I, Mr. Trump? Who am I? I have nothing left." Trump placed a comforting hand on Frank's shoulder. "Mr. Miller, everything you've given to this country is the reason we stand here today. People like you are the foundation of this nation, and I promise you, a hero like you will never be left behind. You deserve more than this. Margaret's memory will not be forgotten, and we will rebuild your life." Frank looked up at Trump, his voice trembling. "Mr. Trump, I voted for you. I prayed for you. I never lost faith in this country, but right now, I've lost faith in myself. You're my last hope," he said, his words breaking into sobs. Trump took a deep breath and met Frank's gaze. "Frank, this is not the end. It's a new beginning. We will honor Margaret. We will rebuild your life. And I'll do this not just for you, but for every hero like you who has been forgotten. Today, you leave here not as a man who's lost everything, but as a man whose story will inspire us all. You will not be forgotten." Frank tried to wipe away his tears, but couldn't stop them from flowing. "Thank you, Mr. Trump. Your words, what you said about Margaret, I'll never forget. Do this for her. Even after losing everything, she was my strength," he said, his voice thick with gratitude. This moment was more than just a gesture of support for Frank, it was a turning point. Trump's determined words transformed Frank's sorrow into a glimmer of hope. It marked the beginning of a journey to rebuild not just a life, but a legacy. Trump immediately informed his team about Frank's situation. "This man is a hero. We're going to rebuild his life," he declared. Within days, fundraising campaigns were launched, and plans for constructing a new home for Frank began to take shape. Knowing that nothing could ease the pain of losing Margaret, Trump suggested building a memorial in the garden of the new home to honor her memory. Frank's story spread across the country, capturing the hearts of many. Donations poured in, and people rallied to help the veteran regain his dignity and stability. Trump also established a special fund to cover all of Frank's medical needs. His old wheelchair was replaced with a state-of-the-art model, and a vehicle adapted for his mobility needs was donated to him. "Mr. Miller, this is your comeback story. With Margaret's love guiding you, you'll overcome these hardships," Trump told him with a reassuring tone. Just a few days later, thanks to the campaign launched by Trump, Frank moved into his new home. The neighbors rallied together to support him, offering a sense of community and solidarity. In the yard of his new home, a memorial dedicated to Margaret was built, serving as both a source of comfort and a constant reminder of her love. During a charity event, Trump reunited with Frank. Standing before a crowd, Frank, with tears in his eyes, took the microphone and said, "Mr. Trump, you didn't just give me a home, you taught me how to live again. I fought for this country, but under your leadership, I've found the strength to hold on to life once more. Now I have a place where I can keep Margaret's memory alive. Thank you." Placing a reassuring hand on Frank's shoulder, Trump spoke sincerely. "Mr. Miller, you are a true hero of this nation. It is your sacrifices that inspire us all. We will honor Margaret's memory and ensure." "Thank you." Placing a reassuring hand on Frank's shoulder, Trump spoke sincerely. "Mr. Miller, you are a true hero of this nation. It is your sacrifices that inspire us all. We will honor Margaret's memory and ensure you always have our support." Frank's story became a symbol not only of a veteran's return to life, but also of the incredible power of community and solidarity. With Trump's support, Frank rebuilt his life and began to look toward the future with hope and strength. Note: if this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned for more touching and inspirational stories. Together, let's build a world filled with compassion and unity.